Welcome to the Women Business Collaborative Faster Together LinkedIn Live series. We are thrilled to have you today to talk about accelerating women in technology from recruitment to retention, to learn about the Women Business Collaborative, and to talk about our annual summit. The Women Business Collaborative is an unprecedented alliance of over 55 women's business organizations collaborating together to achieve equal position, pay, and power for all businesswomen. It is the first business movement dedicated to equity and diversity, and it is comprised of professional women and men, business organizations, public and private companies, and the media, accelerating change through collaboration, advocacy, action, and accountability. By uniting more than 50 of the leading women's business organizations and 400 champions, the WBC activates our vast network to attain immediate and long-term results around 9 essential action initiatives. The first 3 focus on executive women's leadership in business, and these are CEO leadership and sponsorship of women CEOs, women in the C-suite and executive leadership with P&L responsibility, and women in the boardroom. Our next 3 action initiatives focus on the underrepresentation of women in business. These include women entrepreneurs and access to capital, women in capital and finance, and women in technology. And the final 3 are critical for equity for women in business. These are diversity, equity, and inclusion, gender and pay parity, and women in the pipeline. Thus, our work focuses on ensuring more women CEOs in the C-suite and boards, a demand for gender pay and parity, increasing access to institutional capital, and capital for women entrepreneurs, driving more women as controllers of capital allocation, parity for women in underrepresented sectors such as technology, and leveraging learning and development to drive pipeline promotions. Interwoven across every initiative is our call for inclusivity, diversity, and equity for all women, including women of color, the LGBTQIA community, and other disenfranchised women. Our collaboration and network is spearheaded by our board, partners, advisory, and leadership councils. The WBC reaches millions of business leaders across the United States and globally. And we are committed to diversity. Our councils and board of directors include more than 34% people of color. And this power of combining the collaborative approach with our women's business movement is already creating momentum and accelerating the pace of change for businesswomen. We will talk about this more today. And we want you to hear more about what we do, who we are, and where we are going. But first, I have to tell you to come join us at our annual summit in September to hear how we are accelerating the pace of change. Our summit is titled Empowering Through Gender Equity and Diversity. It's scheduled to take place virtually on September 21st and 22nd. At the summit, we will recognize 2 key groups. The first is 8 CEOs of some of the largest companies in the Fortune and Russell indexes who are leading the charge to advance diversity. BlackRock, State Street, Dow, Progressive, Walmart, Siemens, Procter & Gamble, and General Motors. We are also recognizing 6 trailblazers whose leadership and innovations have created new pathways to change for their communities and beyond. These include Secretary of Commerce, Gina Raimondo, Cassandra Brown Duckett, the CEO of TIAA, Magic Johnson, the CEO of Magic Johnson Enterprises, Indra Nooy, the former CEO of PepsiCo, Lily Ledbetter, activist and author, and Joey Ryman, the founder and CEO of Brand New World Studios. In addition, at the summit, you will hear from key WBC partners, champions, and sponsors across industries and sectors on how to best create equal position, pay, and power for all businesswomen. This includes topics ranging from diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, to how to build leadership across technology and healthcare industries, to building our movement. Today, I'm thrilled to speak to 2 of our WBC board members, Balaji Ganapathy, the Global Head of Corporate Sustainability at Tata Consultancy Services, and Viola Maxwell-Thompson, CEO Emeritus of Information Technology Senior Management Forum, ITSML. Welcome, Balaji, and welcome, Viola.
Thanks, Gwen. Hi, Viola.
Hi, Balaji. Thank you, Gwen. Wow, what an exciting summit we have planned.
We do. We have a lot. And I know that both of you have been speaking about kind of what we're going to talk about from technology to building the movement to the collaboration. So it's really exciting to work with you on this summit. But I want to start today with a bit of why you are a part of the WBC. And I'm going to start with you, Viola. Why are you a part of the WBC? What brought you here? And what are you doing with the Women Business Collaborative?
So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this during this conversation. I am a member of WBC because I'm a woman. I'm a Black woman. I'm also a woman who spent 25 years working in the technology industry in corporate America. And when I heard about what WBC was doing, I said, yes, let me join the board, join this organization and get involved. It really intrigued me when we started talking about a collaboration. As Edie says, we are faster together. And that is so reflective of what is happening with this movement, quite honestly, within WBC. We are identifying real challenges that women face, women and women of color, not only in the tech industry, but in the country overall, in various different sectors of a corporation. But we're identifying best practices and pooling together a number of different organizations to address those challenges and to start to move the needle and make a difference. So that's why I'm here, and I'm looking forward to continuing to have an impact on the results that we will soon be able to report about women in corporate America, and specifically women in technology.
Before we turn to Balaji, I'd also like to note, and thank you, Viola, because ITSMF is also a partner organization. So your commitment and in the commitment of ITSMF is really important in this building of collaboration and sharing of best practices.
Absolutely.
Balaji, let's talk about why you are a part of the WBC.
I mean, I think the easy answer is to be surrounded by people like Viola, you and other board members gives me great joy. But two specific reasons. I think one is, my own personal backstory coming from humble beginnings. I think everybody in our family has advanced because the women in the family got an opportunity couple of generations ago to gain access to good education and good paying jobs and build a career where they did not have to depend on others to chart their own future. So the power of equity, the power of equal representation is something that I've seen growing up. But from initiative perspective, having been involved in multiple initiatives and boards and advisory councils over the past decade or so, two reasons why WBC stood out. One is the power of the collaborative, right? It is not the fundamental premise being that you alone cannot create change, right? You need to come together, not reinvent the wheel, but create an ecosystem where those who are partners, those who are collaborators, those who are even competitors can come together and coexist and really charter a course towards the future that we all want to have. And the second reason is the bias to action. I think it is great to have pledges, great to have commitments, and we are all part of organizations that want to move the needle by aspiring to do more. But what I found in WBC is the constant bias to action, that we are not going to rest on just pledges and commitments, but what are the advances we can make in each of these action areas for each of these women in different aspects of business. So that's really inspired me, the collaborative nature as well as the bias to action.
I love that. And that translates into the 9 action initiatives and the targets that you all and we all set together. Where do we want to be in 2025 and where do we want to be in 2030? Balaji, I want to talk a little bit about kind of the technology sector, right? So we hear a lot that diversity is important. You create better products, employee engagement and morale go up. What does retention look like? And I kind of want to hear from both of you. What does this look like? Retention specifically for women in the tech sector and people of color?
If you take a step back and look at historically how industries have grown, while there has been better representation among the I would say, the largely accessible job groups. As you get into leadership roles, and especially P&L roles or leading organizations, the disparities are very clear, right? So in the tech sector, it's a reflection of that even more so, because traditionally certain roles were reserved for people within the organization, and those happen to be men. And the glass ceiling is stronger, I would say, in the tech sector in the past. That's been changing of late, especially in the last decade. If you look at the participation of women and representation of women, it has improved, but we are very, very far off from an equitable state. So what can we do as organizations to really look at this, and individuals to really look at it? I think creating an inclusive environment is a really important starting point, and it is easier said than done. It's not just having a buzzword as inclusion, but really understanding the entire organizational culture, how you're bringing people in, how you're fostering that, especially in the light of COVID, when a lot of the work that's being done today is being done remotely, right? So where inherent biases will only get amplified if you're not looking at the organizational design and looking at the processes that you have to create the culture, and ensuring that you're creating more equity there, right? So retention, I think, see, the good news is also that the pandemic has opened up a lot of people in terms of their own biases on where you can work from, who can participate. So there has been, I think, more access to new opportunities, especially leadership opportunities in the past year. But that trend needs to continue. And that is why it needs to be really well thought through process of how to create that culture. Everything else will come through that, right? Our retention, for example, at TCS, we are experiencing the highest retention ever. We have about 92% retention in the organization, and having 500,000 technology workers in the organization, it's not an easy thing to do. But I think the lessons that we're learning, historically, and especially in the light of the pandemic, is what is giving me confidence that industry can step up and create that more inclusive environment for women to grow in technology, and especially leadership roles in the organization.
Viola, from your perspective, and
Yeah. So, it's interesting, Balaji, as I listen to you, because I think that is, first of all, I need to applaud TCS, because I think that is amazing that you guys have such a high retention rate. In my conversations with some of the partners that we have at ITSMF, we're hearing the exact opposite. And we're hearing that the pandemic has actually amplified the challenges that women face from a retention perspective. I heard in a conversation with someone that quitting is now the new self-care for women as a result of the pandemic, because many of them have increased responsibilities as a result of the pandemic, with caring for their families, for their elderly parents. Some of them are the primary breadwinners in the home. And so when we are starting to open back up our offices, women are saying, well, you know what, this is not going to work for me, because I have so many responsibilities, right? Especially when they were also trying to teach homeschool the children. So I think where we have made some progress, that is great. I look at an organization like ITSMF that was created 25 years ago, because the number of Blacks in senior level positions, that percentage was somewhere around 3%. Fast forward 25 years, I think it's maybe at 5%. And it's not because we as an organization aren't doing everything that we can, because our mission is specific about increasing the representation of Black professionals in the tech industry. But I think that there's so many other challenges that are happening, especially around retention, that it's not allowing us to see this huge uptick. And I think the retention challenges have to do with the fact that we're not seeing an equitable environment. So a lot of people, and as you mentioned, Balaji, it doesn't happen overnight, right? A lot of people are focused on diversity, they're focused on inclusion, but the piece in that middle, the E in the middle, is so incredibly important. That equity part really makes an individual feel like they're being treated fairly. And in fact, they are being treated fairly. And until we address all three of those with the same level of commitment and focus, I think we're going to continue to see a retention issue, especially among people of color in tech. There's some statistics that, I just want to throw out for a second. When we start talking about career progression, which is one of the reasons why people don't stay in the tech industry. In 2019, for every 100 men who were promoted to their first management position, only 72 white women were promoted, 68 Latinas, and 58 Black women were promoted. And women are 3.5 times more likely to be 35 and older and still in a junior position, while less than 5% of men are still in these positions. So while we're making progress, and I absolutely want to applaud that and encourage that because we need that to continue, there's still some areas where we need to double down and really focus on certain communities within the tech industry in order for us to see a significant difference.
No, reflecting on what you said, Viola, I think it's absolutely true. And when I shared earlier, I shared the company perspective and what's happening internally. But as you said, it is a struggle, right? Overall, if you look at the statistics that you're quoting, this is exactly what we're hearing from a lot of our customers or others that we work with in the industry. And that is where I think the creating that inclusive culture doesn't, as I said, come overnight, right? You have to make the right kind of investments in where you're hiring from, how you are intentionally creating experiences that are more inclusive within the organization. And the equity piece comes in when you understand the individual context in those experiences, right? You mentioned about care, home care. And on the one hand, even in my personal example, I'm able to do more at home in the past 18 months that I've done in the past 18 years, right? But that doesn't mean that, those responsibilities that may inherently be placed on women goes away, right? So I completely agree with you that employers, especially as you think about this misnomer of coming back to work, right? We have all been working for the past 18 months. It's not like, coming back to office and creating the right kind of intervention so that you're not putting extra pressure on a certain set of people who are already, the equity is not existing is really important. So I completely agree with you. And it's not going to happen overnight, but I'm an optimist because, of the work that we are all doing, that the right kind of practices can happen. Role models are important, sponsors are important, especially as you mentioned, the 58 Black women for every 100 men. I mean, that cannot change without sponsorship, right? Leaders within the organization need to actively understand and identify who are those among people, women in that level who could be promoted into, higher responsibilities and take active steps towards that, not tokenism, but a culture which really values and cherishes that. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think about my own journey, right? So grew up humble beginnings in New York City and didn't even understand the concept of being a software engineer. Like, what is that? Girls don't do that, right? That's not how I was raised.
Yeah.
But then you fast forward in my career and getting into technology actually happened by chance, not by plan. And I had a phenomenal career to the point of becoming a partner in Ernst & Young. But I'll have to tell you that it wasn't a result of having family members who could explain to me how to navigate the politics and the culture in corporate America. It was organizations, quite honestly, like ITSMF and BDPA and others who had programs that said, these are the things that you need to understand about how to advance within your career, about the difference between sponsorship and mentorship, because they are two different things, to understand how to navigate through biases and cultures and things like that. And that's what our learning and development programs look like at ITSMF, quite honestly. And we have one specifically for women of color in tech, because as a woman, you often have this, I call it my little elf on my shoulder who says to me, you can't do that. You're not ready. It's too soon, right? Where men typically say, yeah, okay, I qualify. Let me apply for this position. Women feel that they have to be 3 times as qualified in order to even be able to raise their hand. And so we're teaching women to find and tap into that authentic person and quiet that voice that says, no, not you, no, you're not ready, so that they truly can, and the academy is called Emerge, so they truly can emerge into the leader that is already within them, but is being quieted. And that's what we need to do more and more of, create more and more of those kinds of environments and experiences, I believe, for women in general, and specifically women of color.
No, I completely agree. And one last point, Gwen, before we wind up, is I think starting early is really important. So we have a program called GoIT, which is running in about 120 cities across the country, where we are looking at helping young girls and people of color, students of color, understand how to identify community problems and use technology to solve those problems, right? So it's not just about stereotypical roles like a coder or a programmer, but how do you approach digital innovation? Because one of the areas where I think in the summit also we'll focus on is what are the new jobs and opportunities that are coming as a result of digital transformation. You know, one of the things that the pandemic has done is a pull forward of a lot of digital transformation. But I believe that that has created more opportunities for women to get into leadership positions, because what is this digital transformation all about but to provide a better quality of life for people across different domains and service areas, right? And I think better life experiences that we bring in can help improve the consumer experience, whether you're a B2B or a B2C company. And so I think there is opportunity there, but a lot of inherent stereotypes and biases that we need to overcome. And that's why that mentorship is important at the early stage, so that you're talking to women, engaging with them as role models. And then sponsorship is important once they come into the company, so that they stay and grow and are able to fulfill those potential in the leadership roles. So I'm excited about the summit, and thank you for sharing your story. Gwen, I think it's going to be a power-packed session over 2 days. What are your thoughts on the summit and what our audience should look for?
Thank you. No, it's fantastic. And it is going to be a packed 2 days. And I think what's interesting is you've heard today from both Viola and yourself, Balaji, about sort of starting early, access to information, mentor sponsorship, sort of the commitment of leadership, and the really important piece in sort of how are you looking at, I've seen the expression, managing employees' life experience as opposed to managing employee engagement. So how are we really looking at kind of the whole picture? But I want to thank both of you for speaking on this. And I look forward to speaking with you further about this summit, to hear more from experts and thought leaders like Balaji and Viola, to understand the data, the tools, and the best practices to drive gender equity and parity. Please join us on the summit. You can find all the information on our WBC website, wbccollaborative.org, under the events tab. And there's a link to the hop-in page, which we will send you. And that's all we have time for today. I'd love to thank everyone who joined us. Our next show is next week. We were speaking with Edie Frazier, our CEO, and Joey Ryman of Brand New World Studios. Invite your followers and friends to join us. And remember to register to keep up on the date and the progress of the movement and the summit. Follow us on social media at WBC Collaborative. We are on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And thank you, Balaji and Viola. Thank you for your talk today, for being board members of the Women Business Collaborative. And we look forward to a great afternoon with everyone and seeing you in under 2 weeks at our summit. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gwen. Have a good day, Viola.
Have a good day, Balaji.